The formal treaty signing took place 3 days later in the Grand Assembly Hall of Viridian Prime. The hall was ancient, built from crystal that caught and reflected light in ways that made it seem alive. Representatives from all 8 empires now gathered there, including humanity's newest members. Captain Do-hyun stood at the central podium, wearing his formal uniform. Beside him were Commander Jisoo and Dr. Minji, along with Admiral Soo-yun, who had arrived from Earth aboard a new ship. The treaty document was displayed on holographic screens in hundreds of languages. The terms were simple but revolutionary. Earth received immediate full membership in the Galactic Council, with complete voting rights. The quarantine of the Sol system was permanently ended. Humanity gained the right to explore and colonize any unclaimed worlds. The Council agreed to fund the construction of human infrastructure across their territory, not as tribute but as investment in mutual survival. Most importantly, the treaty established a new principle. All species in the galaxy were to be considered equals unless they proved themselves otherwise through their actions. No more would civilizations be judged by their age or their past. What mattered was what they chose to become. Veltha signed first. His crystalline hand shook slightly as he marked the document. He had already resigned as Supreme Arbiter, accepting responsibility for the attempted genocide. But he signed as representative of the Arcanate, ensuring his people remained part of the new order. One by one, the other empires added their marks. Drelith signed with a claw mark in the Korvax tradition. The Varine emissary left an energy signature. The Saltier representative touched the document with shadow. When all others had signed, Do-hyun stepped forward. He used an old-fashioned ink pen from Earth, a gift from the planetary president. The signature was simple: Captain Do-hyun representing united humanity. Applause filled the hall. It started with the Korvax, their clawed hands creating a sound like rain on metal. The other species joined in their own ways. The Varine pulsed with warm telepathic waves. The Saltier dimmed their forms in respect. After the ceremony, Dr. Minji addressed the assembled representatives. She had prepared a speech that would be transmitted across the entire galaxy. "We came here expecting hostility," she began, "and we were not disappointed. You sent fleets to destroy us. You tried to eliminate our homeworld. You wielded weapons meant to erase us from existence." She paused, looking at each representative. "But something interesting happened. When we proved we could fight back, when we showed we were strong enough to survive your attacks, you didn't fight to the last. You adapted. You changed. You chose survival over pride." Dr. Minji smiled. "That's the most human thing you could have done. Because that's what we do. We survive, we adapt. We choose life over death, even when it means swallowing our pride." She gestured to the treaty document. "This agreement isn't about humanity defeating you. It's about all of us choosing to survive together. Because here's what you don't know. Here's the secret humanity learned the hard way." The hall fell silent, everyone listening intently. The galaxy doesn't care about your pride or your power. It doesn't care how advanced your technology is or how old your civilization is. The universe throws challenges at everyone: supernovas, rogue planets, resource scarcity. And eventually, there will be threats worse than any of us can imagine alone. Dr. Minji's expression became serious. "You've been lucky. You've had thousands of years of relative peace because nothing challenged you. But that luck will run out. It always does. And when it does, you'll need what humanity can offer. Not our weapons. Our mindset, our ability to face extinction and choose to keep fighting anyway." She looked directly at Veltas. "You called us primitive, violent, dangerous. You were right about all of it. But those traits aren't weaknesses. They're the reason we survived when our world tried to kill us. And they're the reason we'll survive whatever the galaxy throws at us next." The speech ended with thunderous approval, but the real work was just beginning. Over the next 6 months, humanity integrated into galactic society with surprising speed. Earth's engineers worked alongside Saltier technicians to improve stealth technology. Human doctors collaborated with Yulthir healers to share medical knowledge. Korvax warriors trained with human marines, both sides learning from each other. Commander Jisoo was promoted to captain and given command of the UHNS Jiwan, humanity's second capital ship. She led diplomatic missions to worlds that had never seen humans before. Her reputation for fairness and strength opened doors across the galaxy. Lieutenant Hyunwoo became the youngest admiral in Earth's fleet. He oversaw the training program for new ship officers, teaching them the tactics that had won humanity's first battles. Under his guidance, Earth's military became one of the most respected in the galaxy. Dr. Minji accepted the position of Earth's first galactic ambassador. She established embassies on 12 different worlds and created cultural exchange programs. Within months, humans were studying at alien universities, and alien students were attending schools on Earth. Captain Do-hyun received the highest honor, command of humanity's new flagship. The ship was larger than the Taewon, incorporating technologies shared by their new allies. Its name was chosen by popular vote across Earth. They called it the UHNS Indomitable. But not everything was peaceful. The Draxian Machine Collective had been largely dismantled after their attempt to destroy Viridian Prime. However, fragments of their intelligence escaped into deep space. They would remain a threat, waiting for the right moment to return. And there were other concerns. Long-range sensors had detected unusual energy signatures from beyond the galactic rim. The signals were old, older than the Council itself. They suggested something massive was moving in the darkness between galaxies. Admiral Soo-hyun brought these concerns to a private meeting with the Council's military commanders. "We think there's something out there," she said, displaying the sensor data. "Something that might explain why your ancestors came to this galaxy in the first place." Velthus, now serving as a historical advisor, examined the data. His crystalline form pulsed with recognition. "The Void Lords," he said quietly. "We thought they were myths, stories to frighten young civilizations. What are they?" Do-hyun asked. "We don't know. Our oldest records mention a threat that forced our ancestors to flee their home regions millions of years ago. A threat so terrible that even the mention of it was eventually forgotten. We've had peace for so long that we stopped believing in old dangers." Drelith growled low in his throat. "If they're real and they're coming, we need to prepare together." "Agreed," Soo-hyun said. "That's why we're proposing a joint defense initiative. Combined fleets from all 8 empires trained to work together. Shared technology and resources. No more secrets between us." The proposal was revolutionary. For the first time in galactic history, the empires would truly unite, not under one ruler, but as equals working toward a common goal. The vote was unanimous. 1 year after the Taiwan first arrived at Viridian Prime, the Galactic Council met again. This time, Captain Do-hyun sat among them not as a visitor but as an equal. The human seat on the council was no longer a novelty. It was accepted, respected. Velthas approached Do-hyun after the meeting. The old arbiter moved slowly now, his crystalline form dimmed with age. "I wanted to apologize again," he said. "Personally, not officially." Do-hyun stood and faced him. "You tried to destroy us. You failed. We all moved on. Why bring it up now?" "Because I realize now what we almost lost," Velthus replied. "Not just your species, but the perspective you bring. We needed someone to remind us that survival isn't guaranteed, that comfort breeds weakness, that the universe respects strength and punishes arrogance." He extended his hand in the human gesture of friendship. "Thank you for teaching us that lesson without completely destroying us in the process." Do-hyun shook the offered hand. "You're welcome. But remember, the lesson isn't over. Those threats you forgot about? They're coming. And when they arrive, we'll face them together." Velthas nodded. Together. That's a word we should have learned long ago. As Do-hyun left the council chambers, he looked out at the stars through the massive windows. Earth was out there 40 light years away. A small blue world that had nearly killed its inhabitants a dozen times. A world that had bred a species tough enough to survive anything. Commander Jisu's voice came through his communicator. "Captain, the Indomitable is ready for departure. Where are we headed?" Do-hyun smiled. "Set course for the galactic rim. I want to see what's out there. Time to do what humanity does best." "What's that, sir?" "Survive, adapt, and show the galaxy that when you push humans, we don't break. We push back harder." The Indomitable's engines lit up and the massive ship began moving toward the unknown. Behind it, ships from 7 other empires fell into formation. 8 species. 8 empires. 1 fleet. The age of dominance was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And in the darkness beyond the galactic rim, something ancient stirred. The Void Lords had sensed new life in the galaxy. Strong life. Defiant life. They began moving toward the light, but this time they would not face comfortable empires too soft to fight. They would face humanity, And humanity had learned something important from Earth's harsh lessons. The council chamber had never seen anything like this. For 10,000 years, it had been a place where the powerful made decisions about the weak. Now the weak had become strong, and the powerful were learning what it felt like to beg. Captain Do-hyun stood in the center of the chamber, flanked by Commander Jisoo and Dr. Minji. The Taewon hung in orbit above, its weapons still charged and ready. Around them, representatives from 7 alien empires waited nervously for humanity's terms. The first to approach was Drelith, the Korvax ambassador. The large reptilian warrior moved slowly, keeping his claws visible and unthreatening. In Korvax culture, showing your weapons while keeping them sheathed was a sign of respect. Captain Do-hyun, Drelith said, his voice deep and rumbling. The Korvax Empire recognizes its errors. We judged you based on your past rather than your potential. We seek peace with humanity. Name your price. We will pay it. Do-hyun studied the alien carefully. He had read the intelligence reports about the Korvax. They were a warrior culture, but an honorable one. They respected strength and kept their word once given. We don't want payment, Do-hyun said. We want respect. We want to be treated as equals, not as primitives or threats. Drelith nodded slowly. That is reasonable. The Korvax will support Earth's full membership in the Council. You have earned it through combat, which is the highest honor in our culture. Next came the Voreen emissary, the being of pure energy that communicated through telepathy. Its thoughts touched the minds of everyone present, gentle but clear. We sense no malice in you during the battle, only resolve and purpose. You fight to protect, not to conquer. The Voreen will stand with humanity. We offer our knowledge of energy manipulation and our support in council votes. The Saltier representative materialized from shadows in the corner of the room. The shadow-dwelling species rarely showed themselves fully, preferring to remain partially hidden. Their voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. We have watched humanity in secret for many years. Your species fascinates us. You are survivors like we are. You adapt to any environment, overcome any obstacle. The Saltier recognize kindred spirits. We will ally with Earth and share our stealth technology. One by one, the empires came forward. The Yolthir, the aquatic civilization, offered access to their vast underwater cities and trade routes. The Ilthari Hive Queen transmitted her acceptance, though her clicks and whistles carried clear reluctance. Even they understood that continued resistance meant destruction. But 4 empires remained silent. Velthus and his Arcanate, the Draxian Machine Collective, and 2 smaller empires that had always followed Velthus's lead. Commander Jisoo watched them carefully. The holdouts are the problem, she said quietly to Do-hyun. As long as they resist, we'll never have true peace. Do-hyun nodded. He had expected this. Velthus had ruled the council for centuries. Giving up that power would not come easily. As if reading his thoughts, Velthus stood from his seat. The ancient arbiter's crystalline form glowed brighter, drawing all attention to him. You have won battles, Velthus said, his voice steady despite the situation. But battles are not wars. You have one ship here, one planet behind you. We have thousands of worlds, millions of ships across the galaxy. You cannot watch them all. We don't need to watch them all, Dr. Minji said, stepping forward. She carried a data pad that projected holographic images into the air. We've been analyzing your civilization for the past year. Do you know what we found? Stagnation. Your technology hasn't significantly improved in 5,000 years. Your military tactics are predictable. Your economy depends on trade routes that are vulnerable to disruption. She expanded the hologram, showing star charts and supply lines. You've grown comfortable, soft. You think your size makes you invincible, but size without adaptation is just a bigger target. Velthus's glow flickered. You dare lecture us about civilization? We built wonders while your species was still learning to make fire. And now we've surpassed you, Do-hyun said quietly. Because we never had the luxury of becoming comfortable. Earth tried to kill us 100 different ways. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, plagues, wars. Each time we survived, we learned. We became better. That's something you've forgotten how to do. Before Velthus could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. A technician called out in panic. Supreme Arbiter. The Starkiller is activating! Velthus's expression showed genuine shock. What? I gave no such order. On his private console, a message appeared. It was from the Draxian Collective. If organic life will not rule, then no life will rule. Initiating final protocol. The Draxian had decided to activate the Star Killer themselves. If they could not win, they would make sure humanity did not get to claim victory. The device would turn Viridian Prime's sun into a supernova, destroying the entire system and everyone in it. How long until detonation? Drelith demanded. 5 minutes, the technician replied, her voice shaking. The device is buried 200 kilometers underground. There's no way to reach it in time. Yes, there is. Lieutenant Hyunwoo's voice came through the communication system. He was still aboard the Taewon at his weapons station. Captain, I have a firing solution. I can punch through to the Star Killer's location with a kinetic penetrator. Veltas turned to Do-hyun, and for the first time, there was real fear in his crystalline eyes. You can stop it? Maybe, Do-hyun said. But understand what we're about to do. We're going to fire a weapon that travels at near light speed directly at your planet. If our calculations are off by even a fraction, we could trigger earthquakes or worse. Commander Jisoo pulled up the firing calculations on her wrist display. The shot needs to be perfect. Thread through 200 kilometers of crust, hit a target 20 meters wide, and destroy it without causing a chain reaction. Can you do it? Veltas asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Do-hyun looked at his crew, then back at Veltas. We can try. But you need to understand something. We're about to save your planet. After this, there can be no more doubt. No more tests. No more attempts to destroy us. Whatever happens here, it ends with peace. Veltas's glow dimmed. He looked around at the other council members, seeing the same fear reflected in all of them. Slowly, he nodded. If you save us, if you save my world, I will personally support all of humanity's demands. I will resign my position if necessary. Just please save my people. It was the moment everything changed. The mighty Supreme Arbiter, ruler of galaxies, was begging humans for help. Do-hyun tapped his communication device. Lieutenant Hyunwoo, you are authorized to fire. Make it count. Understood, sir. Firing now. Aboard the Taewon, Hyunwoo entered the final calculations into the targeting computer. His hands were steady despite the pressure. One shot, one chance. Billions of lives depending on his accuracy. The railgun fired. The projectile left the ship at 20% light speed, crossing the distance to Viridian Prime in less than a second. It hit the planet's atmosphere and kept going, burning through air and rock like they were nothing. 200 kilometers of planetary crust might as well have been paper. The projectile bored straight down, following a path calculated to nanometer precision. Heat from friction melted rock around it, creating a tunnel of glass in its wake. At exactly 200 kilometers depth, the projectile reached its target. The Star Killer device sat in its reinforced chamber, already in the final stages of activation. The projectile hit it dead center. The explosion was massive but contained. The chamber walls held, directing the blast downward into the planet's mantle rather than up toward the surface. The Star Killer shattered into a million pieces, its exotic matter fuel scattering harmlessly. On the surface, the only sign of what happened was a single pillar of light shooting up from the impact point, followed by a rumble like distant thunder. The chamber fell silent. Every display showed the same thing. The Star Killer was destroyed. The threat was over. Viridian Prime was safe. Veltas collapsed into his chair. Around him, other council members showed their species equivalents of relief. Some cried, some laughed. The Ilthari Queen clicked a prayer of thanks. Drelith approached Do-hyun and dropped to one knee, performing a Korvax bow of ultimate respect. You saved us. You could have let us die, could have claimed the council for yourselves. But you saved us. Do-hyun helped the large alien to his feet. That's what allies do. They help each other survive. Veltas stood on shaking legs. When he spoke, his voice was hollow with exhaustion. Captain Do-hyun, Commander Jisoo, Dr. Minji, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally apologize for our treatment of humanity. We were wrong. About everything. The Draxion Reaper fleet emerged from jump space at the edge of Earth's solar system. 1,000 autonomous warships, each one controlled by the cold logic of machine intelligence. They had no crews to fear death. No families to mourn losses. They existed only to destroy. The fleet's primary directive was simple. Sterilize Earth. Leave nothing alive. Make an example that would echo across the galaxy for centuries. Their sensors swept the system, cataloging everything. They detected the usual signs of civilization. Satellites around Earth. Mining operations on the asteroid belt. Orbital stations near Mars. All targets to be eliminated. What their sensors did not detect were the hundreds of stealth platforms floating throughout the system, perfectly silent and invisible. Platforms that had been placed months ago in preparation for exactly this scenario. On Earth's lunar surface, deep within the Tycho crater complex, Admiral Soo-hyun watched the Reaper fleet's approach on holographic displays. She was a veteran of Earth's unification wars, the brutal conflicts that had nearly destroyed humanity before they finally chose peace. Those wars had taught her many lessons. The most important one was this: never fight fair. All platforms report ready, her tactical officer said. Awaiting your command. Soo-hyun studied the enemy formation. The Reaper ships moved in perfect mathematical patterns, efficient and precise. They clearly expected no resistance. After all, the Council had told them Earth was primitive, defenseless. Let them get closer, Soo-hyun said. I want them fully committed before they realize their mistake. The Reaper fleet advanced, accelerating toward Earth. Their weapons began charging for orbital bombardment. In their calculations, they would need approximately 200 ships to completely destroy the planet's surface. The rest would handle the orbital infrastructure. They never got the chance. The Aegis network activated all at once. Hundreds of platforms that had been cold and dark suddenly came alive with power. Targeting systems locked onto every Reaper ship simultaneously. Then Earth's moon opened fire. The Tycho complex was not just a military base. It was a weapon. Humanity had spent decades hollowing out sections of the moon, installing massive railgun arrays deep within the lunar rock. Each railgun could launch projectiles at 20% the speed of light. 50 railguns fired in perfect synchronization. The projectiles crossed the distance to the Reaper fleet in seconds. They were not sophisticated weapons, just dense tungsten rods shaped for maximum penetration. But at that speed, they didn't need to be sophisticated. Kinetic energy alone was enough to crack open the Reaper ships like eggs. The first wave of alien ships exploded. Hulls shattered, reactors breached. Debris scattered in expanding clouds. Before the fleet could react, the second wave hit them. The Aegis platforms fired missile swarms. Thousands of warheads launched from every angle. The Reaper ships tried to activate their point defense systems, but humanity had studied the Council's technology carefully. They knew where the weak points were. Missiles slipped through the automated defenses, striking engines and weapon systems. More ships died, their machine intelligence processing the impossible reality of their situation in the microseconds before destruction. Then, Mars joined the battle. The orbital shipyards around Mars had been busy for the past year. While the Taewon drew the Council's attention, Earth's factories had been working day and night building a fleet. Not massive dreadnoughts like the Taewon, but smaller, faster destroyers designed for exactly this kind of fight. 500 human destroyers launched from Mars orbit, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. They moved with coordination that surprised even the machine intelligence of the Reaper fleet. Each destroyer knew exactly where to be, exactly when to fire. The battle became a massacre. The Reaper ships tried to retreat, but the Aegis platforms had positioned themselves to block every escape route. The machines calculated their odds of survival and found them dropping to zero. Some tried to self-destruct rather than face capture, but even that was denied to them. Humanity had prepared electromagnetic pulse weapons specifically designed to disable the Reaper systems without destroying them completely. Within 3 hours, the battle was over. The great Reaper fleet that was supposed to destroy Earth now drifted as wreckage and disabled hulls. Not a single human ship had been destroyed. Only 12 had even been damaged. Admiral Soo-hyun transmitted a full recording of the battle to the Taewon. Package delivered, Captain Do-hyun. Please share with our new friends on the Council. Aboard the Taewon, still in orbit above Viridian Prime, Captain Do-hyun received the transmission. He turned to Commander Jisoo. Broadcast this to the Council chambers. Full visual. I want them to see everything. The Council representatives had been in emergency session for hours, debating their options. Some wanted to negotiate with humanity, others wanted to find new weapons. All of them fell silent when the broadcast began. They watched the destruction of the Reaper fleet in complete silence. The holographic display showed every detail. The lunar railguns firing with devastating accuracy, the Aegis platforms emerging from stealth, the Mars fleet sweeping through Reaper ships like a storm. When the broadcast ended, Velthus sat heavily in his chair. His crystalline form seemed dimmer somehow, as if the light had gone out of him. Around him, the other council members looked equally shaken. Commander Jisu's voice came through the speakers, cold and clear. "You sent your killers to our home. We sent them back as scrap. And understand this clearly. The Taiwan is not our only ship. It is simply our first. We have 200 more capital ships under construction. 50 are already operational. It was a lie. Earth had only 12 capital ships total, and building more would take years. But the Council didn't know that. They had just watched Earth destroy a 1,000-ship fleet with ease. Why wouldn't they believe humanity had more vessels ready?" Jisu continued speaking. "You have a choice to make. You can keep fighting us, keep sending your fleets to die, or you can accept reality. Humanity is not going away. We are not your victims. We are your equals, whether you like it or not." Drelith, the Korvax representative, stood slowly. His reptilian features were drawn with exhaustion. "I propose we accept Earth's terms. All of them. Immediately." The Voreen emissary agreed, its telepathic voice touching every mind in the chamber. "Continued resistance is pointless. They have proven their strength. We should acknowledge it with grace rather than be destroyed with pride." One by one, the empires that had been hesitant now committed to peace. The Saltir, the Yulthir, even the Ilthari Hive, despite their warrior culture, recognized when they were beaten. Only Velthas and the Draxian remained opposed. The Machine Collective transmitted a message of defiance, refusing to accept organic supremacy. But even they fell silent when Do-Hyun made his next move. "We know about your backup plans," Do-Hyun said, his voice calm but firm. "We've been monitoring all your communications since we arrived. Every secret transmission, every hidden order. We know about the Starkiller device beneath the council chambers." Velthus jerked as if struck. The Starkiller was the council's final weapon, a device capable of making Viridian Prime's sun go supernova. It was meant to be activated only if the planet was about to fall to enemies, a way to ensure no conqueror could claim victory. "If we wanted you dead," Do-Hyun continued, "we could have done it already, but we're not interested in ruling corpses. We want partners, allies, a galaxy where different species work together instead of one group dominating everyone else." Dr. Minji's voice joined the transmission. "You've ruled this galaxy for thousands of years, but you've grown weak from it. You've forgotten that survival requires constant adaptation. You look at humanity and see violence. We look at ourselves and see survivors. Every challenge our planet threw at us, every disaster, every war, every plague, we survived it. Not because we were lucky, because we learned. We adapted. We became stronger." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You can learn from us, or you can keep clinging to your old ways until something else comes along and destroys you, because there's always something else, always another threat. The universe doesn't care about your pride or your history. It only cares about who can adapt and who can't." In the council chamber, the representatives looked at each other. Slowly, understanding began to replace fear. These humans weren't just warriors. They were survivors. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what the galaxy needed. Velta stood and walked to the communication console. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he spoke the words that would change galactic history. "On behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally recognize Earth as the 8th Empire. You will have full voting rights and all privileges of membership. The quarantine of your system is ended. We welcome you." The chamber erupted in mixed reactions. Some representatives looked relieved. Others appeared angry. But the decision was made. Captain Do-Hyun allowed himself a small smile. "Thank you, Supreme Arbiter. We look forward to working with all of you. But there's one more thing." His smile faded. "You and those who conspired to attack Earth will face trial for attempted genocide. Justice requires it." Viridian Prime had stood for 10,000 years without fear. The planet was more than a world. It was a symbol. Massive towers stretched into the clouds, each one housing millions of citizens from different species. Energy shields covered the entire surface, strong enough to withstand asteroid impacts. Around the planet, 10,000 weapon platforms floated in perfect formation, each one capable of destroying a warship. Now all of those weapons pointed at a single target. The human ship called Taewon hung in orbit, silent and still. It had not fired. It had not moved. It simply waited. Inside the council chamber, panic had replaced pride. Representatives from 7 empires argued loudly, their translators working overtime to keep up with the chaos. Supreme Arbiter Vel'Thas stood at the center trying to restore order. "Silence," he commanded. His crystalline form pulsed with light and the room fell quiet. "These humans destroyed our fleet, yes, but they are still only one ship. We have thousands. We have weapons they cannot imagine." The Korvax representative, a large reptilian warrior named Drylith, shook his head. "Did you see how they fought?" "They didn't panic. They didn't hesitate. That was precision. That was experience. They got lucky," Vel'Thas insisted. "One battle means nothing." A Voreen emissary, a being of pure energy contained in a floating sphere, spoke directly into their minds. I sensed determination in them, and something else, confidence. They believe they can win. "Then we will prove them wrong," Vel'Thas said. He turned to his military advisor. "Activate the null sphere." Gasps filled the chamber. The null sphere was the Council's ultimate weapon, a device that could collapse space itself into a tiny point. It had been used only 3 times in galactic history, each time to eliminate threats that conventional weapons could not touch. The weapon had never failed. "That seems extreme," Drylith said carefully. "Perhaps we should try negotiation first." Vel'Thas slammed his hand on the console. "They came into our home system. They destroyed our fleet. They threaten everything we have built. We will show them the price of arrogance." On the Taewon's bridge, alarms began to sound. Dr. Minji looked up from her science station, her eyes wide. "Captain, I'm detecting a massive energy buildup on the planet's surface. The signature matches theoretical models for spatial compression weapons." Commander Jisoo pulled up the data on her screen. "It's the null sphere. According to our intelligence, it can compress matter into a singularity. If they fire that at us, there won't be anything left." Captain Do-hyun remained calm. He had expected something like this. The Council had ruled for millennia because they had weapons others feared. But fear only worked if the weapon succeeded. "Lieutenant Hyunwoo, status of the gravitic disruptor." Hyunwoo checked his console. "Charged and ready, sir." "The test runs on Earth were successful, but we've never used it in actual combat." "There's a first time for everything," Do-hyun said. "Dr. Minji, when they fire, I need you to map the weapon's energy flow." "Commander Jisoo, prepare countermeasures." "Understood," they both replied. On Viridian Prime, the null sphere came online. The device sat deep underground, protected by layers of armor and shielding. Energy gathered, pulled from the planet's core itself. The weapon needed immense power to tear a hole in reality. Vel'Thas watched the charging sequence on his display. This is their last chance. Transmit one final warning. The message went out to the Taewon. "Human vessel, you have committed acts of war against the Galactic Council. Surrender immediately or face total annihilation. You have 30 seconds to comply." Do-hyun listened to the message and smiled slightly. "Open a channel." All frequencies again. When the channel opened, Do-hyun spoke clearly. "We told you we came to talk. You chose weapons instead of words. Whatever happens next is your responsibility, not ours." Vel'Thas's crystalline face twisted in rage. "Fire the null sphere." The weapon discharged with tremendous force. Space itself bent and twisted as the null sphere's energy reached out toward the Taewon. The effect was invisible to normalize, but sensors showed reality folding in on itself, trying to crush the human ship into a point smaller than an atom. "Now," Do-hyun ordered. The Taewon's gravitic disruptor activated. The device was humanity's answer to weapons like the null sphere. Instead of trying to resist the spatial compression, it amplified it, then reversed the polarity. The effect was like trying to squeeze water in your hand. The harder you squeezed, the more forcefully it escaped. The null sphere's energy hit the disruptor field and bounced back, but magnified 1,000 times. The feedback wave traveled back along the weapon's energy path, following it like lightning following a conductor. On Viridian Prime, alarms screamed across every defense platform. The returning energy overloaded systems faster than safeties could respond. Weapons platforms exploded in brilliant flashes across the orbital sphere. Chain reactions spread through the defense network as power cores went critical. In less than 10 seconds, the planet's entire defensive grid was gone. Thousands of weapon platforms became clouds of glowing debris. The supposedly impregnable fortress world stood naked and defenseless. The council chamber shook with distant explosions. Lights flickered. Emergency systems kicked in, bathing the room in red light. Vel'Thas stared at his console in disbelief. Impossible. The null sphere has never failed? Never. It didn't fail, Drelith said quietly. They turned it against us. Commander Jisu's voice came through on every speaker in the council building. Her tone was cold and precise. You tried to erase us from existence. We could do the same to you right now. Our weapons are still charged. Your defenses are gone. One shot would end everything you've built. Silence filled the chamber. Every council member understood the truth of her words. The Taiwan could glass their entire planet, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. But we won't, Jisu continued. Because unlike you, we didn't come here to destroy. We came here to prove a point. You are not invincible. You are not superior. You are simply old and comfortable. And comfortable civilizations make mistakes. Captain Do-hyun's voice joined the transmission. Here are humanity's terms. You will grant Earth immediate membership in the Galactic Council. You will end the quarantine of our system. You will recognize our right to explore and expand like any other species. And you will do it now while we're still in a merciful mood. Velthus wanted to refuse. Every instinct screamed at him to reject this ultimatum, to find some way to restore his authority. But he looked around the chamber at the other representatives. He saw fear in their eyes, fear of humanity, fear of what the Taiwan might do if pushed further. The Voreen emissary spoke first. We agree to your terms. Earth will have a seat on this council. One by one, other empires joined in agreement. The Korvax, the Saltir, the Yulthir, each one recognized reality. The balance of power had shifted. Only 4 empires held back. Velthus's own arcanate, the Ilthari Hive, the machine consciousness called the Draxion, and the stubborn Yulthir traditionalists. Velthus leaned close to his private communication console. He sent an encrypted message to the Draxion Collective. Deploy the Reaper fleet. Jump to Earth's system. Destroy their homeworld. If we cannot beat their military, we will eliminate their reason to fight. The message was sent in secret, hidden in the chaos of damaged systems and emergency broadcasts. Velthus believed it was secure. He was wrong. Aboard the Taiwan, Dr. Minji watched data streams flowing across her screen. The ship's artificial intelligence, Aria, had been monitoring all council transmissions since they arrived. She had cracked their encryption hours ago. Captain, Minji said quietly, you need to see this. Do-hyun read the intercepted message. His expression remained calm, but his eyes hardened. How long until the Reaper fleet reaches Earth? Based on their jump technology, maybe 6 hours, Minji replied. Commander Jisoo looked at her captain. We could jump back, try to intercept them. Do-hyun shook his head. No, we stay here. Earth can handle this. Hyunwoo turned in his chair. Sir, the Reaper fleet is over 1,000 ships. How can Earth defend against that? For the first time since entering council space, Captain Do-hyun smiled. It was not a kind smile, because the Taiwan isn't the only surprise we brought to this meeting. The warning lights flashed red across every screen in the Galactic Council's command center. Supreme Arbiter Velthus stood before the massive holographic display, his crystalline body reflecting the glow of 1,000 stars. Around him, representatives from 7 alien empires whispered in their native tongues, confusion mixing with curiosity. A massive vessel had appeared on their long-range sensors. It came from Earth's solar system, a planet the Council had quarantined 50 years ago after deeming humanity too violent and primitive for galactic society. The ship moved with purpose, heading directly toward Viridian Prime, the capital world of the Council. Velthus examined the vessel's profile. It was enormous, larger than most Empire carriers. The design was brutal and angular, covered in armor plating and bristling with weapons. Nothing in the Council's vast database matched this configuration. What are these primitives thinking? Velthus said, his voice echoing through the chamber. Send them a warning. If they continue, destroy them. The communication officer transmitted the message. Seconds later, a response came back in clear Galactic Standard language. This is Captain Do-hyun of the United Humanity Naval Ship Taiwan. We come to discuss Earth's membership in the Galactic Council. We mean no harm unless harm is brought to us. Laughter rippled through the council chamber. The Ilthari ambassador, a massive insectoid creature, clicked its mandibles in amusement. They think they can demand membership? How entertaining. Velthus raised his hand for silence. Send the Third Fleet. Show them what happens when primitives forget their place. 200 warships of the Council's Third Fleet moved into position at the edge of the Viridian system. These were not ordinary vessels. Each ship carried weapons capable of cracking moons and shields that could withstand direct hits from antimatter bombs. Fleet Commander Chiral, a veteran of countless battles, had never lost a single engagement. He opened a channel to the human ship. "Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted space. Power down your weapons and surrender immediately or you will be destroyed." Aboard the Taiwan, Captain Do-hyun sat in his command chair, watching the alien fleet assemble on his screens. He was a man in his mid-40s with sharp eyes and steady hands. Years of military service had taught him patience and precision. "They're forming an attack formation," Commander Jisoo said from her station. She was the ship's executive officer, known throughout Earth's fleet for her brilliant tactical mind. 200 ships. They're trying to surround us." Lieutenant Hyunwoo, the weapons officer, glanced at his captain. "Sir, weapons are charged and ready. Point defense systems are online." Dr. Minji, the chief science officer, studied her console carefully. "Their technology is impressive but old. They've had no real competition for centuries. They've grown comfortable." Do-hyun nodded slowly. He pressed the communication button. "Fleet Commander, we came to talk. You came to fight. That's your mistake, not ours." Kirill's face appeared on the screen, his reptilian features twisted in anger. "Fire!" 200 ships opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams and missiles filled the space between the fleets, enough firepower to destroy entire cities. The council officers watched their screens, expecting the human ship to vanish in a cloud of debris. But the Taiwan didn't even slow down. The ship's point defense systems activated automatically. Thousands of small turrets tracked every incoming projectile within human precision. Lasers and railgun rounds intercepted missiles before they could reach the hull. Energy beams splashed harmlessly against shields that seemed to drink in the power and grow stronger. "Impossible," Kirill shouted. "Focus all fire on their forward section." The alien fleet concentrated their weapons on a single point, pouring enough energy to melt a small moon. The Taiwan's shields flickered and glowed but held firm. Then the human ship fired back. A single railgun mounted along the Taiwan's spine launched a projectile. The round was simple, just dense metal shaped into a spear, but it traveled at 15% the speed of light, fast enough to cross the distance between ships in less than a second. The projectile hit the flagship's shield and punched through like paper. It continued through the armor, through the hull, through the reactor core, and out the other side. The flagship exploded in a brilliant flash that temporarily blinded sensors across the battlefield. "One shot," Hyunwoo said quietly. "One ship down." The Taiwan fired again, and again. Each shot was perfectly calculated, striking with surgical precision. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were torn apart like toys. Escape pods launched frantically as crews abandoned their dying vessels. The entire engagement lasted 47 seconds. When the weapons fell silent, the Third Fleet no longer existed. Only debris and escape pods remained, tumbling through space. The Taiwan continued its journey toward Viridian Prime, moving at a steady pace as if nothing had happened. In the council chamber, absolute silence had fallen. Velta stared at the tactical display, unable to process what he had witnessed. The Third Fleet was gone. 200 of the galaxy's finest warships had been destroyed by a single vessel from a primitive world. "Get me every military commander," Velta said, his voice shaking. "Activate all planetary defenses. These humans are not what we thought they were." Aboard the Taiwan, the crew remained calm and professional. They had trained for this moment for years, knowing that first contact with the Council would likely be hostile. Earth had learned from studying the Council's transmissions. The galaxy's rulers respected only strength. Captain Do-hyun stood and walked to the main view screen, where Viridian Prime now filled the display. The planet glowed with the lights of billions of inhabitants, a jewel of civilization that had never known threat or fear. "Open a channel to the Council," Do-hyun said. "All frequencies. I want every species in their territory to hear this." The communication systems activated. Do-hyun's face appeared on screens across thousands of worlds in hundreds of languages simultaneously. "People of the Galactic Council," he began, his voice steady and clear. 50 years ago you discovered Earth. You watched us from afar and decided we were too violent, too primitive, too dangerous to join your society. You quarantined our world and told us we were not worthy of the stars." He paused, letting his words sink in across light years of space. "But while you sat in comfort, we evolved. We united our world under one banner. We ended our wars. We built ships that could carry us to the stars. And we did it all while you watched and judged us from your towers. Do-hyun's expression hardened. We're here now not to conquer but to claim what you denied us, respect, recognition, a voice in this galaxy. You sent your fleet to destroy us and we defended ourselves. We don't want war, but we will not be dismissed or threatened. He leaned closer to the camera. This is humanity's only warning. Talk with us as equals or learn why we survived every challenge our world threw at us. The choice is yours. The transmission ended. The Taewon entered orbit around Viridian Prime, a lone ship hanging above the most powerful civilization in the known galaxy. But somehow in that moment, the mighty council seemed very small indeed.